Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me for my talk today. My name is Luke Quarles, and I will be presenting on a portion of my master's work at Oxford Brookes University under the supervision of Dr. Anna Nakaris. And I studied the ecology of wild slow lorises, specifically Bengal slow lorises, in anthropogenic landscapes in Thailand, with the goal of improving translocation success. So first we'll focus on threats. So forest loss is rapidly accelerating in Southeast Asia, specifically in biodiversity hotspots, and that includes Thailand. Forest cover in Thailand has unfortunately declined from about 70% in 1930 to just 15% in 2005, and that was 18 years ago at this point. So what is driving this forest loss is mainly agriculture. Oil palm and rubber plantations contribute to continual deforestation within the country, which leads to high species loss. And rubber plantations are replacing natural ecosystems, which is a problem for many species, especially those that require native forests to survive and that have very specialized diets. So that's what brings us to slow lorises. So slow lorises are small nocturnal primates that need continuous canopy to be able to travel safely because they're incapable of jumping. And they also specialize in eating exudates. That's sap, gum, resin, and latex. And you can see the loris in this video gouging on a tree for gum. So because of these adaptations, they're presumed to have very strict habitat requirements, but they are increasingly found in more human-dominated areas like villages or agricultural settings. So within Thailand specifically, there are a few observational and ethnoprimatological studies for the two species of endangered slow lorises, the greater slow loris and the Bengal slow loris. And additionally, the Thai government follows IUCN recommendations and prohibits the release of rescued animals until their wild behaviors and distribution are known. And they want to know the behaviors and distribution within the country specifically, which makes sense. And slow lorises are not just threatened by habitat loss and the illegal wildlife trade, but they are also threatened by improper translocations. So it was my goal to provide information that could improve translocation success or facilitate translocations. Um, and additionally, I wanted to explore the ability of lorises to live within these human-dominated landscapes. So towards that end, I worked to define a baseline of their behavioral repertoire within the country and identify where individual lorises are seen by local people. So first we'll focus on how I define the baseline of their behavioral repertoire. So I picked an observational study site of an eco-resort in the south of Thailand called Khao Lak Merlin. They had preserved a majority of the native trees within their resort area, though it's highly converted for human enjoyment. There is a lot of connectivity in the canopy, and it supports a variety of wildlife within the area. So it was a 6-hectare resort that had a group of 4 lorises living within it. This was a family unit of Bengal slow lorises, and I followed them over a 2-month period, following them for 6 hours a night between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. And I performed focal follows, sampling every 5 minutes, and continually tracking feeding and social behavior. Additionally, I collected GPS points to determine their home range. So let's look at, additionally, this is a picture of the resort, a fantastic database that I had access to where the resort had cataloged all of the trees. So I was able to determine exactly what the lorises were utilizing for food and travel. So looking at their home range, they stayed almost entirely within the resort, venturing a little bit into one of the neighboring resorts that hems in the Khao Lak Merlin resort. And they never crossed the road into the plantations on the other side to the right on the screen. So I observed 1,393 total events, 608 of which were feeding events. And I recorded 21 plant species that they used for foraging and travel. So for this histogram, we're going to look at just the blue because that's the average for their activity budget. So they spend a majority of their time feeding and exploring, and then a majority of their time socializing, grooming, traveling, and alert behavior. So socializing was unusually high, notably high for when compared to prior studies. For the feeding events, a majority of their diet was gum, followed by insects, then fruits, and then a completely novel food source of palm trees, the areca palm. And fruit consumption was notably high as well for the lorises, especially when looking at closely related species like the Javan slow loris. Fruit is usually an insignificant part of their diet, though you can see it is a very large portion of their diet for the lorises at Khao Lak. So this is unusual. And when we look specifically at what the lorises are eating, their main source of gum is Terminalia catapa. In fact, this was their only source of gum, this species, and I only observed them feeding from one individual tree at the resort. For their fruit consumption, they mainly ate Artocarpus elasticus and Artocarpus heterophyllus, which you may recognize as jackfruit. And they also incorporated this novel palm gouging. And I figured out that the fruits contained latex and they were consuming the sap of the palm tree. So for overall conclusions of the observational phase, their activity budget was comparable to prior research, but socializing was a lot higher than expected. It was closer to 10%, whereas in prior studies, it's around 2%. So this could potentially indicate that they have positive welfare, that all of their needs are being met and they're able to socialize at a higher rate. Though we need to look at their diet as well. So their diet was similar to two studies of Bengal slow lorises in India. And my findings reinforce the importance of the genus of trees Terminalia as a source of gum for lorises. But their diet was a lot higher in fruits, which was unexpected. But when you take into account the fact that the fruits are high in latex, along with the novel gouging on palm trees, you can realize that they're just incorporating new sources of exudates. So they're likely supplementing their diet because they don't have many sources of their main food source, gum. So because of these novel feeding behaviors, it's hard to make solid conclusions about the suitability of the habitat at the eco resort, although these data seem to indicate that lorises can utilize these highly modified human landscapes. So now let's look at how I identified where lorises were seen within the area of Khao Lak. So the study area is a series of villages that stretch along 20 kilometers of beach that's now mostly tourist-oriented. And the composition was small pockets of urban areas surrounded by plantations of oil palm and rubber. And there was a national park called Khao Lak Merlin that was nearby. So I performed 36 interviews with 48 participants who were all long-term residents. I performed them at markets, landmarks, tea shops, and at personal residences. And I had two translators with me who helped to perform the interviews, and I recorded and transcribed responses for later analysis. And I used photo cards of lorises along with questions of where they saw individuals. And I used descriptive statistics as well as salience to determine the prominence of certain experiences. So when we look at just descriptive statistics, lorises were seen in forests and in trees a majority of the time, but they were also found in human-dominated areas like towns and villages, specifically mentioned at homesteads, roads, and on electrical wires. Additionally, they were seen a lot in plantations, specifically rubber plantations. And when we look at the salience, calculations, we find that these human-dominated areas show up in the 13 most salient words. We have plantation, house, village, town, and market, all within strengthening these descriptive statistic findings. So overall, I conclude that slow lorises and Khao Lak are frequently found in these human-dominated areas, and that they are utilizing rubber plantations at a relatively high rate. And I also identified that electrocutions and road strikes are threats to their conservation within the area. So for general findings, the observational findings suggest that eco-resorts such as Khao Lak Merlin can provide viable habitat for lorises. Additionally, the interviews highlight a trend that slow lorises, as highly specialized and threatened animals, can live in and around human-dominated landscapes. And this strengthens the argument that they should not be translocated away from these areas, that they may be able to persist within them, though further research is required. And future conservation efforts should focus on restoring degraded human-dominated areas to accommodate for the animals that are already existing and persisting there. So I'd like to thank all of these amazing organizations that helped me with my research. Of course, Khao Lak Merlin Resort and the Love Wildlife Foundation, as well as the Little Fireface Project, Oxford Brookes University, and the Nocturnal Primate Research Group. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great day.